Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Anna, a clinical psychology doctoral intern, and today we're going to be talking about anxiety, specifically how it's an issue of mindfulness and acceptance, as well as some tips for how to fix that. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to check out my other videos and subscribe and hit the bell notification button. So, how is anxiety an issue of mindfulness and acceptance? When we experience fear, it is a very normal human reaction, or any sort of animal reaction, to a current threat. For instance, you see a bear coming towards you, you see a big wave coming towards you on the beach, you know to feel afraid and to take some action to get you to safety. Anxiety is different in that it's not based on a current threat, it's based on a future predicted threat. And so in a sense, you're not living in the present moment, you don't have anything to worry about right now, you're worried about something in the future that hasn't yet happened, might not even be realistic to happen. Like if I go camping, I could hypothetically run into a bear. Am I in a location where there are a lot of bears? Do I have enough resources to keep myself safe? That doesn't matter, I'm just worried about it. Or if I go to the beach, there could be a big wave that comes and gets me. Is it a particularly stormy day? Am I able to run away if that happens? Is there a big earthquake that's coming that's going to bring a tsunami? Who knows? I'm just worried about it. Or even as we evolve as human beings, we become less and less biologically fearful too. We become more fearful of things that honestly are very nuanced. Like if I open up to this person, they might judge me, they might evaluate me negatively, they might bully me in some way. When you are living in the future, you are not living in the present. You are not honoring the present moment that you are embodying. And that, in essence, is a mindfulness issue, because mindfulness is the ability to be present. Now, like I said, when you experience anxiety, you are trying to predict what could possibly go wrong in the future. And theoretically, that could be adaptive, right? If it motivates you to bring pepper spray while you're camping, or to not go really close to the waves, and they have the sign out front that says it's a very sneaker wave day, and so they could come catch you, so really be careful. Of course, it is adaptive to have some level of anxiety about those sorts of things that could realistically happen to you, because it could prevent harm. But by definition, when it becomes an anxiety disorder is when it's taken to an extreme that it's no longer adaptive. It's no longer keeping you safe. It's actually impeding your ability to move through the world on a day-to-day basis. You're not able to function at school, at work, with friends, at home. You're not able to enjoy your life. It is now negatively affecting your well-being. It is not keeping you out of harm's way anymore. Sometimes I like to explain to people who experience a lot of anxiety how to gauge risk. Risk is not just how bad is the outcome that could happen? How bad is it to get eaten by a bear? Risk is also the probability of something happening. So when you look at probability and severity of the outcome at the same time, that can help you figure out, okay, how risky is this action? For instance, when you get on a commercial plane, the chances of something happening that will be catastrophic are very, very, very low. It's one of the safest modes of transport. But if something does happen, the severity is pretty bad, right? Like if you crash the plane, if you aren't able to emergency land safely, then chances are it's going to be pretty terrible. When you get into a car, the chance of you getting into a car crash is actually pretty high. Car crashes are pretty common, and the severity of the outcome can vary. Sometimes car crashes are mild, sometimes they're severe, so we'll put that at like a moderate risk. When you get into a small non-commercial plane, like a one-engine jet, the probability of something happening is still pretty low, but the severity of the outcome is a little bit worse, because in a small plane, it's not as safe as a commercial plane, and so you're actually 19 times more likely to die in those small planes than in a car. The point is that risk is not just about what is the outcome that could happen, it's also about what is the probability of it happening. It's about those combinations. And it doesn't make sense to really worry about things that either have a very, very low probability of happening or have a very mild severity outcome. When you have an anxiety disorder, that's very difficult to do. You are very worried about the things that are 1% or 0.01% likely to happen. You are worried about even the little risks. As you might imagine, many anxiety disorders are triggered by trauma. Maybe you fear being judged because you were bullied when you were in school. Maybe you're worried that your romantic partner is going to hurt you because that's happened to you in past romantic relationships. Maybe it feels like the world isn't safe because growing up your parents didn't foster a sense of safety. You were kind of walking around on eggshells and at any moment they could explode on you. Anxiety disorders can also be a little bit more temperamental or genetic, where a very small trigger is needed for the anxiety disorder, where it was pretty likely that some small thing was going to happen to trigger it anyway. I would say this is pretty rare. I would say it's much more typical that when you go into therapy and process where did this anxiety originate from, there's usually some sort of traumatic experience that brought it on, even if it's a trauma with a lower T rather than trauma with a capital T, like in PTSD. Or sometimes anxiety disorders are also taught through modeling. We're very behavioral creatures. What we see, especially in role models, we tend to replicate. We follow in the footsteps of important people in our lives, important attachment figures. A huge predictor of whether you are going to be anxious is whether your parents were anxious people as well. Because if you think about it, if you see the people who are supposed to be keeping you safe and they feel like they're not doing a good job, like some danger is going to come your way, why would you think that the world is a safe place? And further yet, some parents actually project their anxiety onto their kids. So for instance, some parents will worry about their own body image, project that onto their kids, then their kids have body image issues, or worry about their kid's health and can't handle what's going to happen if my kid's not safe, and then their kid worries about that too. So you take someone with maybe a genetic predisposition to anxiety, or an anxious parent, or a traumatic experience, or all of the above, and what you get is someone who is constantly trying to keep themselves safe by living in the future. They are not living in the present. But it's not just that. People with anxiety disorders do have a mindfulness issue, but they also have an acceptance issue, in that they cannot accept that bad things sometimes happen and bad things could happen in the future. Now, sometimes people don't like the word acceptance because they think it means passivity or complacency or enabling or endorsing. That's not what acceptance means. Acceptance is perfectly compatible with external action. It's an internal attitude of, I accept the circumstances of what's happening to me, no matter what they are, because I can't change them. You could very well do what you can to try to change them while also accepting that this is ultimately what's happening in the present moment. For instance, you could accept that a family member of yours has a personality disorder while also setting a boundary with them. It doesn't mean that you just let them do whatever they want. Let me give you an example of how an anxious person might resist reality, given something that I recently went through. So I was recently at the airport coming back from my wedding, actually, and there was a big evacuation at the airport. And they closed down one of the terminals because they had found an unidentified bag there, and it was a security threat. And there were a lot of lines of like hundreds of people who were rerouted from that terminal to a different terminal, so everything was backed up. Flights were obviously delayed, everyone was scared and tired and groggy and waiting in line for a long time. And during that time, while I was trying to figure out what was going on, there wasn't a whole lot of news, so my husband went on Twitter and he was sort of reading people's replies to the news that the airport had let out. And there were a lot of people saying, this is terrible, like, please tell us what's happening, we're scared, we're waiting here in line, like, how long is this gonna take, you're doing such a terrible job, you know, getting increasingly aggressive, like, if this is your protocol, then I don't know how you sleep at night, like, shit like that, where it was, like, very clear that there was a lot of resistance to the situation and a lot of anxiety as well. Now, I've been making a lot of efforts to not be an anxious person recently because historically I have had some issues with anxiety, and so I've been trying very hard to practice mindfulness and acceptance of the situation. So as I was seeing these huge lines at the terminal, I tried to take a deep breath and to remember that there's nothing I can do about this. If this is the situation, this is the situation. And actually, I'm kind of lucky in this situation because I'm here super early. My flight isn't for quite a few hours, and so it's not likely to get as delayed as the flights that are sooner. Things could be much, much worse. You know, this could actually be a security threat that actually hurt me and the other people at the airport. So I was really feeling kind of relaxed about the whole situation. And actually, in that relaxation, we were able to find a better solution. There was a woman walking past us who at that very moment said, "Did you know that there's no one at the international terminal? There's no line there. They're opening it up. It connects to the other terminal. we can go there. And that's exactly what we did. We breezed right in, and then we had a few hours. Our flight was a little bit delayed, but we were able to just relax. And I just read, and I felt honestly very calm about it and not worried about the security threat, and pretty confident that things were going to be okay. When you practice acceptance, you're able to release some of that anxiety, and honestly, you're able to practice more gratitude, because it allowed me to think about how lucky and blessed I am in that moment, that there are people waiting in a really long line, or who have hours-long delays on their flights, or people who are in harm's way in other places in the world. And that's not my situation. Practicing acceptance reminded me that my current circumstances are not that bad. They're actually pretty damn good. So I'd like to leave you with just a few concrete tips to improve mindfulness and acceptance. And I know that it's very rudimentary. You're not going to completely rewire your brain just with these few tips, but I hope that it's able to give you a little bit of a start. When you notice yourself getting anxious about something that could happen in the future, first of all, remember that you are living in the future right now, and redirect yourself back into the present moment. Ground yourself using all 5 senses. What are things that you can see, hear, feel, taste, smell around you? Do some deep breathing. Scan your body for any inner sensations that might be coming up and just pay attention to them. Wiggle your toes. Bring yourself back into your body in the present moment. Next, I want you to ask yourself, do you have a problem right now? Now, this was something that really kind of changed my life from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This was his suggestion for anxiety, was asking yourself, when you're worried about something in the future, do you have that problem now? Not 10 minutes from now, not an hour from now, not tomorrow, not a year from now. Do you have that problem right now? Because in most cases, the answer to that is going to be no. I don't have a bear coming towards me right now. I worry about that happening this afternoon. I don't have a wave coming at me right now. I worry about that happening at any given moment. I don't have somebody judging me right now. I worry that it's possible it could happen. Maybe your boss emails you for a one-on-one call and they seem a little bit cold in their writing. Could you get fired? Could you get in trouble? Sure, that's possible in the future, but it's not happening to you right now. So what is even the point of worrying about it? Is that even going to change the outcome? But maybe there are some rare occasions where the answer to that question is yes. Maybe you are uncomfortable and tired and jet lagged, like some of those people in that line. Maybe they do have a problem right now. What do you do then? That's where you can take action and or practice acceptance, whichever one or ones are available to you. Maybe there is something else you can do. Maybe you can go get a cup of coffee or go to a different terminal and get the line there that's shorter. So maybe you've taken that action and you've done everything within your control. Or maybe there isn't that option. Maybe you don't even know that these are possibilities for you. Maybe you're like those tons of other people that didn't know there was another line they could go to. That's where acceptance comes in. Complaining and whining and practicing resistance to your life circumstances are not going to change the circumstances. So internally, try to practice acceptance. Try to remind yourself and say to yourself, this is the situation, and then literally describe the situation. This is a temporary moment of pain. I feel tired. There is nothing I can do about this. Try to focus on the positives of the situation, if there are any. Try to fully embody this moment, even the painful parts, because sometimes life is painful. Practice some gratitude. Try to find some meaning in the adversity. Think about how great you'll feel when this is over. How great it'll feel when you're finally snug in your bed and able to sleep. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, talks about how one of the major ways that human beings derive meaning in their life is through withstanding adversity, through being resilient. Life is not all sunshine and roses. It's not always going to be exactly how we want it or convenient for us. That is okay. When adversity comes our way, comes tapping at our door, we can just find meaning in coping with it. Because honestly, there is no other option. Hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you soon.